The reality is that adult children still need fathers. They just need them differently. Your connection and how you do it will evolve, but it never stops mattering to our children.
What if the moments your kids remember most aren't the big family trips or expensive gifts, but the 5 minutes you gave them when they need you the most? Research consistently shows that children's brains and relationships are shaped through brief, responsive, back and forth interactions with caring adults. These serve and return moments, when a child reaches out and a parent responds, help build emotional connection, communication skills, and long term well being. Even small interactions can have a meaningful impact when they happen consistently. So, today we're going to be talking about the power of micro moments, the small investments that can strengthen your relationship with your child, whether they're 3, 13, or 33. So, as always, today you are watching and listening to Dad Central, a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. Our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. They believe that when care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. And we're encouraging you, please answer questions about fatherhood during our show. We want to get some. So email your questions to podcast@dadcentral.ca. So, Drew, another great conversation topic today, the one that you can probably align with a little bit because you got children of different ages. What's up with it?
Yeah. Well, sometimes the micro moments don't end up being so positive.
True.
Can be challenging, and sometimes you're watching the micro moments between the kids, and you're like, "Oh man, we got some work to do here." But yeah, building connection, something that is crucial. I think we're created as humans. We are social creatures, and being connected to the people that matter to us is, I think it's hardwired into our beings. And so um and sometimes we find there are a lot of, I think, in this world today, a lot of things that can easily create huge disconnection. And so we have a lot of distractions, a lot of things that create stress and anxiety, a lot that could really rip at the fabric of a close, connected relationship. Um, and honestly, I think that's why it's important to recognize, one small step is really the way to go, and just repeating those small steps consistently over time will yield to positive results. So, it's a matter of what is the right step. And it might be slightly different for everyone, but I think there are some principles that we'll explore today that hopefully a dad can listen, recognize the age and stage of his kids, and what's one action he can take moving forward, and try and do that a little more consistently, and see the positive results.
Okay, so what we're going to cover today is why small moments, matter more than we think. Also, ages 2 to 7 enter their world. Ages 8 to 12 build trust through curiosity. Then we have teens connect without an agenda. And then adult children stay connected in small ways. And we also have a dad challenge that's involved in this too. So, Drew, lots to cover today, but we're going to get it done. Let's start off with why small moments matter more than we think.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to tell the same story that I told at the end of our last podcast. So if you did listen to that podcast, maybe you can just do the fast forward of this. But I'm telling the story of this research that was done by Robert Rosenthal and some of his colleagues in California, back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the research was that he had a group of teachers, and they had these students that they were teaching. And he said, look, we've tested these students, and this small group of students here, they're exceptional. They're on the verge of an intellectual boom. But here's the thing, you can't teach them any differently than the rest of your class. So what they did is they watched the teachers, they observed them all throughout the school year. And then at the end of the year, they tested the students, and sure enough, the small group of students they identified that were on that verge of an intellectual boom, they tested off the charts. But here's the catch: those students were randomly selected. There was nothing unique or special about them. They were just like every other student in the class. So then the question becomes, what happened? Well, what happened is Rosenthal find, and he hypothesized in the study, is that one, that the teachers believed that those students were exceptional, and so they carried that belief into their interaction. And what he observed is that it was in these micro moments of interaction, a half second or 1 second more of patience, a slightly longer positive touch on the shoulder, or one more positive affirmation of "you can do it," that is almost imperceptible to the obviously the observers didn't notice anything different about how they were teaching them, because they were watched closely, but those micro moments were the things that made the biggest difference, and the belief in the teachers that they were capable. So, I mean, I just found this study like mind blowing when I heard about it, and I've talked about it at certain points throughout, because to me it's so powerful, the power of belief and the power of just holding somebody as capable. And as a coach, I was like, wow, imagine if I applied this to my kids every single day. Anyway, so small moments matter more than we think, because if they can, in a span of a year with somebody who's not even a parent, lead to kids performing off the charts. Wow. Anyways, so
Nice.
that's the story that I think is relevant. So, anyways,
Good.
Ed, you can pop in and we'll go back and forth
Yeah.
on these talking
I'll just
points.
add bits to that many dads believe connection requires large amounts of times, and Drew's stories show that. And the reality, a lot of us fathers are juggling work, responsibilities, schedules, and themselves. And the kids often spell love as attention, and connection grows through frequency more than duration. I want to say that again. Connection grows through frequency more than duration. So relationships are built through repeated positive interactions. Consistency beats intensity. And then 5 focused minutes can often mean more than an hour of distracted presence. And the 5 minutes will come up throughout our conversation as we go on today. And as we say, most kids don't remember every soccer game. They remember the ride home after. So, Drew, let's talk of the ages 2 to 7, entering their
Yeah.
world.
Just before we do that, I'm going to add one more point, because you might be a dad who doesn't have your kids all the time. Or even worse, you may be even limited and restricted in terms of your time with your kids. And I want you to know that this still applies. When I was going through the worst part, the first sort of 3 to 4 months of the separation, and there were some extremely difficult things going on, I barely saw my kids, which was inappropriate, but that's the reality I had to face. But I communicated with them every day as best as I could through their mother, whether she chose to show them or not. I sent them a text message, or I would record a video, or I would read them a story through the video, and I would send it. And I would ask specifically that it would be shown to the kids. And so that was one way that I made sure that I was communicating with them. Again, no more than 5 minutes. Everything was less than 5 minutes, obviously, because it was through text or a voice or video. But that you can find ways to communicate, and if that means it's you're putting things in the mail, it means you're finding ways to show up, where you're able to show up and sort of say and let them know you're there, even if you're not able to interact with them. Anything you can do matters.
Good stuff. So we'll
Okay,
get now
sorry.
to ages 2 to 7,
Yeah.
enter their world.
Yeah, this age is interesting, because kids, they become much more independent, but the reality is they still need a lot of parental connection. And I think sometimes the danger is that we would love to see this independence growing, especially as dads, especially as they become more adept at problem solving and come up with things. But sometimes I see some kids sort of left to their own, maybe a lot more than maybe is ideal for them. And they sometimes can then get into different things, and other friends and other influences, which may not be ideal, can often happen in this age and stage. And so, that parental connection is a great buffer against some of the real potential dangers that kids in this age bracket can fall into if they don't have that secure, strong connection at home. And so, some ideas that dads can take to build, again, micro moments of connection is, just asking about the best or the hardest part of their day, asking about something that made them laugh, asking about something that made them think, questions that just, allow them to share a bit. And then you can listen with curiosity. You can just do activities that you love together. Might be basketball in the driveway, might be some ball hockey, might be, throwing the ball around. Eliana, she's a little bit younger, but I think even the older kids, they like getting out of the trampoline. So you could go for a walk around the block, learn about a game or a hobby they love. Jordan has really gotten into Roblox, and so I've had to learn to listen about. It's like another language, man, hearing him talk. Actually, 99 Nights in the Forest. So, or one of the things that I think is really valuable, especially when the moment comes up, is that you're able to share a story from your own childhood when you're in that age range, from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I found that my kids all of a sudden pay a lot more attention when I start telling them stories about when I was younger or their age. And so these are some ideas, right? And ultimately, if the only takeaway you have is your goal should be to ask more questions than you give advice. Hard for me, obviously, as a coach and somebody who likes to guide, but I'm learning just to ask questions and listen, and that curiosity is ultimately what communicates the value that I have of them, and so I think that's the important takeaway.
All right, let's talk about one of the more adventurous times. Teens connect without an agenda.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm going to share a story. It's great. I had a conversation with my good friend Eric yesterday, and he was talking about his son, and he was sharing how it that there was a period of time where it felt like, his son was really pulling away as he became like a teenager, independent. And they went through some things, and ultimately what he shared with me was an observation. And I think that observation is a great jumping off point for the rest of this portion. And so he does the pickup of his son from work, and so he does the pickup. And what he's learned is that rather than jumping in and maybe asking questions, which we're talking about before in the previous segment, he actually just greets him, and then they just start driving, and he doesn't say anything. He just leaves space. And if he just leaves that space, what he notices after a few minutes of driving, all of a sudden his son will start opening up and will start talking. And then that just allows, and without him even interjecting or asking questions, he'll continue to talk and share. And so he's learned, when I do the pickup now, I don't jump in, I don't ask questions, I'm not teaching, I'm not correcting, I'm just listening. And that has been so powerful and makes a huge difference. And so that's his routine now, is he just creates the space and allows his son to share when he wants to. And so, teens, they really do want connection, but they want it differently. They want to feel heard. They want to feel, I think I heard it described this way. You- Teens want to be able to demonstrate their knowledge and their skill, and that they've got capabilities, and it's almost like they want to teach you. And the more that you allow them to do that, the more that they feel like you actually understand them and get them. And so, some examples, you could drive somewhere together. Maybe that's just home from work. You can grab a snack. I took Michaela the other day. We just sat at Starbucks. Right, we just sat there. She got one of these little ridiculous drinks that I think, but she enjoyed it, and we just sat. You could send them an encouraging message, whether it be a text. I'll often leave notes for my kids, so I left Michaela and Jada notes in their bedrooms. You can watch a funny video together, or ask their opinion. I think this one is so underused, but often so powerful. Ask their opinion on a real life decision or on things that are happening, and you know consider it and take it into, like, say, wow, that's, and give them some positive feedback when they offer you their opinion on it. So the goal here is, resist turning every conversation into a lesson. And I'll be the first to admit that sometimes that's hard for me. My daughter Michaela will often say, Dad, you should have been a teacher. You should have been a teacher. Anyways, so I'll take that, good and bad. But we want to resist turning every conversation into a lesson, because your presence and their ability as teens to feel like they can just bring things to you without there being a lesson in it, is really valuable.
And in our last segment, adult children stay connected in small ways.
Yeah. I've gotten many friends and dads who I talk to who have adult children. And so it's interesting always hearing the differing perspectives. And there's a whole range, right? There's, deeply connected dads and there's dads who are completely estranged. And so, fathers often wonder how their role changes when children become adults. And so we've got some, if you're in that stage, we've got some 5-minute connection ideas, sending a simple voice message, sharing a memory. You can check in after a big event. I would actually encourage you, if you know there's a big event coming, just send some form of encouragement or just letting them know that you're proud of them or that they're going to do great. Something like that, I think, is really powerful. Just checking in. Hey, how are you really doing? I know you've got a lot going on in your life, or I know you're experiencing this. I'm wondering, how are you? And ultimately, I think every kid wants to hear this from their dad is that tell them that you're proud of them. So the reality is that adult children still need fathers. They just need them differently. So your connection and how you do it will evolve, but it never stops mattering to our children.
All right, so let's do a recap on today's conversation. First of all, we talked about why small moments matter more than we think. We got into ages 2 to 7, enter their world. Next up, we had ages 8 to 12, build trust through curiosity. We went into teens, connect without an agenda. And finally, we have adult children, stay connected in small ways. So, some takeaways. First up, connection is built in small moments, not just major milestones. Then we had children of every age want to feel seen, heard, and valued. Then we talked about 5 focus minutes today can strengthen a relationship for years to come. So, Drew, what's our resource for our family today?
Our resource is Dad Mentor, the father leader community, because the reality is that fatherhood is challenging. It's a lot harder if you try and do it alone. And when you have other committed dads beside you and dedicated resources and courses and materials that are going to give you key tips and insights for this work of fatherhood, plus a community that comes alongside you, it's that much easier. So, Dad Mentor, our father leader community.
All right. And I'm going to put out a challenge for everyone. For the next 7 days, spend 5 intentional minutes with your child every day. No phone, no multitasking. I get that multitasking. Just focus, agenda, attention. Then ask yourself what changes, what conversations happened, what opportunities appeared. So, our last conversation today, we'll just leave with this. The most powerful thing a dad can give isn't more stuff or even more advice, it's his attention. Because when a child feels noticed, they feel loved. And sometimes 5 minutes is all it takes to remind them of that. So, we want to encourage you, wherever you're listening to this, give us a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and share with others. So, as always, we like to say thank you for giving the most important thing, your time, to hang out with us today. As always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace, and we'll chat with you soon. Be well and keep the faith.